Hello and welcome to the Bellingham Real Estate Podcast. I'm Paul Balzati. I'm here with Crissy Imperro. Welcome, Crissy. Now, this is your return visitor to the podcast.
Yeah, I'm an old veteran here.
Yes, thank you for coming back. And today we are talking about water adjudication, which is a very, very fascinating topic.
Yeah.
And a big deal.
It's a big deal.
And we'll kind of get right into it.
Okay.
So, you are, I would say, the expert on the topic of everybody in the office. You're on a well, so you're also you're right in it, and
yeah.
you're living it. And so water adjudication. It's only happened right in Whatcom County in Washington. We're going to be the second county in Washington State.
Second county in Washington. The one in Yakima took about 40 years for the adjudication process to finalize.
Yeah. And so Whatcom County, we're the second county in Washington State that's going to be going through this process. And this is basically has to do with the Nooksack basin and anybody who's essentially on a well. Why don't we start out by do you want to just share with everybody what water adjudication means we'll also, if you're listening on the YouTube link, we'll have some screenshots showing the map of what's affecting everything, but maybe just share with everybody about water adjudication, what's going on.
It's basically the Nooksack water drainage system, and parts of Whatcom County aren't included. Even some parts of Skagit County are included, the kind of upper portion that involves some of that drainage. And they're just wanting to get some accountability of how much water is being used in the county off of wells, and they want to know how much your use is, when your start date was, what you're using it for, how much gallons you're going through, so the quantity of use. So the reason behind the adjudication, a little bit of the backstory and history is the stream flows affect salmon runs, and salmon runs affect the Treaty of Port Elliott, which allowed hunting and fishing rights to Native tribes. And so the Native tribes asked the superior courts to adjudicate, to find where the water usage is.
And adjudicate means essentially a letter's going to go out to everybody who's on a well or a shared well. And community wells are also going to be involved.
And even the county municipalities are involved.
Right.
Municipalities, but individuals won't be adjudicated. The municipalities will be the ones that are adjudicated. So that'll go through with them. So basically, they're going to go through and figure out the quantity and all that stuff of everybody in Whatcom County and parts of Skagit County to figure out what water usage are being used for and how much, and, historic. So, and the two big key phrases are first in time, first in right. So the earlier you had your well and right established, the better you are. And because if there is a water fluctuation in the future and they want to start cutting some water usage, say we're in a major drought or something, the people with the longest held water rights will get the most, their water rights will be held first, and the other ones will have to diminish their water usages if that ever comes to being. But then there's the first in time, first in right, and then there's the use it or lose it. And if you don't use your water rights, like if you've had an abandoned farm or something like that, you could lose some of your water rights. And that's been in effect. I don't think they've really enforced it, but that has been a prior appropriation issue from the beginning of water rights. So non-use can equal relinquishment. But I think they're going to enforce it a little bit more now than they have in the past.
So everyone's going to get a letter, and so it was going to be in the fall. Now it's going to be the spring.
It was supposed to be like September, and now the word is it should be coming out around April of 2024.
And so when the letter comes out, it's basically going to say you need to essentially put your hand up and explain what your water situation is, how many, and then essentially the water rights that have been out so far, the whatever that is. For most people, it'll stay the same.
Yeah.
Right?
Most people affect.
But essentially, the adjudication process is essentially them establishing the county and the state, establishing water rights for everybody.
Yeah.
And cataloging that with everybody.
Absolutely.
But then there is going to be essentially, they're not doing that unless there's going to be some sort of a granting of there's going to be like a limit on certain permits that wasn't there before.
Correct.
And,
likely. I don't
Right.
know for sure. Yeah,
Right.
likely.
And it's not just, and why is it not just the Nooksack River Basin itself? Why is it going out further? Because we mentioned it's on Lemmy Island. It goes out. Do you know why that?
I don't know the exact reason for that. It's watershed into the bay, which, I don't know the exact reason why some places that aren't truly
Part of getting the water from Nooksack River
drainage.
Yeah.
We're just saying that Point Roberts is even in this watershed. Yeah. So they'll probably be getting adjudicated as well if they have well stuff. And back with Hertz, when they had a well moratorium, they were trying to figure out if well water was actually affecting river flow. And then that kind of got set aside, and now we have the adjudication process. And so you kind of wonder how much is tying together on that. So if that was abandoned a little, and I don't know. There could be a settlement that comes through, whatever that would be, maybe a reservoir system or something like that.
When you say a settlement, what do you mean by a settlement?
They can settle. Other states have settled, and it's basically said, okay, we're going to agree to this and to get out of doing this full adjudication process. It could take decades. It could take a long time to resolve.
But who's against who here?
Who's against?
Well, you said who's settling?
Settling with basically the tribes from the treaties,
right?
Back from 1855. That treaty basically guaranteed the hunting and fishing rights, and that's why this is kind of coming to fruition now, is because the water levels and the salmon flow and stuff are affected, right? So there may be some sort of settlement in the future. Like maybe they all said, okay, we'll do this if we don't have to go through the full adjudication process. And I don't know what other states did, but they have settled in other states in an adjudication process.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, so if you're a homeowner, so I think that, and this is kind of probably the most important thing, is if you own a home, somebody's listening to this, watching this, they own a home that is on a well, or they own even vacant land, but they own a property that's on a well. What steps should they be taking now? Like what to get ahead of this?
Yeah.
Or even if you're looking to buy a home with a well,
right?
What are you advising your buyers?
I'd do some research first. Like every time I do a listing presentation or something, I go in first, get their tax ID, look up everything on the home, then go to the health department, see what the health department has on well or septic. Then I go to the Department of Ecology and take that tax ID and run that and see what they have on the Department of Ecology. I've found several water rights claims to surface water rights that people didn't even know they had because they were done like almost 100 years ago.
Explain what surface rights means versus...
Yeah, surface rights are like a creek or a freshwater spring or something that comes up on your property, and you've gotten a permit and a certification and claim to use that water. Say there's a year-round stream going past your property. A lot of people historically have used that to irrigate their fields, whether they do it now or not. If they haven't done it in 5 years, they're pretty much going to have to relinquish their right. And that's one of the things that the Department of Ecology has, all these old water claims there that haven't been used. And so that's one of the things I think they're hoping to accomplish, is to relinquish some of these water rights that people have on their land.
So basically, you'd go in the Department of Ecology, you go to the county, you pull up the water rights that are there.
Have all that information, and when you get that letter, you should be able to figure out what your water rights are there for a basic home. If I was a big dairy or raspberry farm, I'd hire a water rights attorney. Yeah, because on a lot of the irrigation is by acre foot. And so in the county, and so if you've got 50 acres that you have corn on or berries on or something, and maybe you had a sprinkler system in the past and you had 12 acre feet, and now you've got a drip line system or something that's more efficient, not as much of it evaporates, and now you're only using 4 acre feet. You're using less, and that's one of the issues with farmers are like, so we're almost getting punished by using less because now our property value is going to be lower because we don't have as much water right if we claim the less amount.
So that's what I want to get into next. So if you're on a regular residential home, you're on a half acre, you have, especially if it's newer home, older home, whatever, and you have a regular private well kind of thing. It's great. It's gonna be pretty clean cut. Now, but let's say we get to, now we have then we have the dairy farms. So we have, this is going to be really simple. And then we have the dairy farms. That's going to be not simple. And that's going to be something, well, even if it could be, they're going to want to have an attorney to deal with that. What about everybody in between? So let's say you have 10 acres and it's zoned and classified for agriculture. And I think this is where you're going with that, is you're not using the water regularly right now. Like you're not using it for agriculture, but you think you have the rights to use as much water as you want.
Right.
Explain a little bit more about what could happen when they go to apply and they say, oh, well, right now I just have a field out here and maybe I have a horse or something, but I'm not using my land other than just for regular water use.
Right.
What's going to happen with these different classifications from what you understand?
Yeah. So from what I understand is that most homes will get at least 500 gallons for household use.
Okay.
And so and we don't really meter wells right now, but that could be part of the settlement or something down the road. But anyhow, 500 gallons of use. Most homes will have at least 5,000 gallons of use for irrigating, say, a garden or lawn or something. And then if you have livestock, you generally get more of an unlimited use. So if you have cattle or something like that. If you just have irrigation and domestic for, say, 5 years, but you don't have livestock, you might not ever get that livestock back again, that use for that. Especially if you're metered in the future, you might not have the full amount that you were used to, say, 10 years prior if you had livestock on it.
And so what could you do to get ahead of that? Is just basically use more use
more water. And a lot of people are like, I'm getting livestock and stuff, and I was like, yeah, you could, but if you do it before the adjudication paperwork comes. But it's just it's hard because I don't want people to lie or fabricate anything. Right. I don't think anybody should do that because they have ways. They have satellite imagery. They could do drive-bys. They could request a visit, all that stuff to verify your claims. So I think the basic 5, 10, 20 acres, if, just claim what your use is based off of what you have on your paperwork that you found, what your well was put in for, domestic and irrigation or domestic livestock, whatever. And then you can say, but we've historically been using it for, cattle or horses or goats or whatever, and stuff, and claim your use for it. And then from there, if you overuse, that could send up a big red flag too. If you're saying that you use more than if you say I've got 50 cows and I only have 5 acres or something like that. Right. You don't want to throw up red flags for extra investigation. That's a huge exaggeration.
Sure. That of course.
They do have. I mentioned this before in a Facebook post that try to go by a farm plan. You don't have to be on a farm plan, but go by the Whatcom County farm plan of how many animals you can have per acre, and that generally won't shoot up a red flag on people. So
what about you own vacant land, or you're looking at, like, if somebody listening to this, they are looking at buying vacant land right now. It says you're assuming that you're going to put in a private well. I'm guessing that in the future, based on as the adjudication process starts really processing, that they will, in certain areas, that water rights are low and things like that, it will potentially, cause restraint to maybe some properties maybe not having even the rights to a private well. Or do you think that, or have you heard anything like that? Because my concern would be, and I think most buyers would be like, do I want to buy vacant land right now that doesn't have a well, and be concerned that they might say, hey, this area here, all the water rights are claimed, there's no water available, and then you have a piece of land that you can't drill a well on. I mean, is that, and then they might say,
that is a potential.
Because they might say, hey, go get a rainwater catchment system, whatever, but you're not going to I mean, is that something that you'd be concerned about?
That's a big concern. Yeah.
Yeah.
And even say a 5-acre piece with a well on it that hasn't been used for 5 years, that's almost the same category, really, because if it hasn't been used at all, it technically should be relinquished, right? So, so a lot of people went and plugged wells in, especially after the Hertz with the well moratorium that we had a few years back. They put wells in, but never actually activated them or used them for anything. And so that makes them basically a non-use for, if it's been 5 years, it could be interesting. You might not be able to use that land for your intended purpose. And I think another thing with that, being said, for the intended purpose, right? So you would just have to make sure that you are going to be able to do what you intend on that property. Bill Clark, who did one of the lectures I went to, he's a water rights attorney. He said, be very careful of the 5-acre piece of land with a well on it that hasn't been used. And I'm taking that as it might not be usable in the future. So that's...
Yeah, or build your house now.
Build your house now. At least apply for the permits and all that stuff and get it going. I've told a few people, it's like, put a fence around it and get some animals on it or something. Just use it. If you've had a well there and you do run animals there, but you have a different well, and maybe you're sectioning off for like a farm plan where you're, putting them in this field and then moving them to that field, which is smart, right? And you want a well here and a well there, so you don't have to like pump it to another stock tank or something. Yeah, you could put animals, a fence on, put animals on, and they don't have to be there year round. Honestly, I hate to say this, you have to show use every 5 years.
Yeah. So just get some use out of that. And that's kind of what I meant earlier. It's like whatever nothing to bloviate or lie, but whatever intent you have for the future, start implementing that.
Implementing it. And here we just got about a 6-month grace period.
Yeah. To start working on whatever we want to work on.
Yeah. And what people want to do with that. But here's another thing. You won't be first in line because it's first in time, first in right. You will be at the bottom of the barrel if they do ever start squashing water usage. If they start saying, hey, we don't, think that we're in a drought right now. We want people to start cutting back and stuff. When I have livestock, one of the nice thing about livestock is they can't cut you back on livestock. It'll kill them, if they cut you way back on
just
animals,
like if you have a house and you live in the house already, like they got to give you
500 gallons.
You got to give you
pretty
that.
much your standard.
So they got to give the water to the animals. They got to give the water to the people that live in the houses. Other than that, everything's kind of up for.
It could be, it could be like how the cities will say, hey, every other day you can water and stuff like that. They could start saying, hey, we're going to start cutting people back. But it's going to be that first in time, first in right as well. So the people who have, say a surface water right on the same stream, one person has a 1845 and another person has a 1822 or something like that. Right. The 1822 is going to have the senior right to that water if they're irrigating fields or something like that with the water. So, that's one of the, and then they use it or lose it, and that's that prior appropriation for that.
And if you've already done everything you're going to do, like you've worked out, okay, I'm using the water to the best ability that I can honestly use it, or I've applied for my permit, or I've done whatever I've done, or I'm already using my property the way I want to use it. It looks like you can also register on their website, and we can put a link out to that to get in line to just get that process going. It probably, and I think, that's something I would absolutely say to a homeowner is, get in line and get your process going as soon as it's available. Be proactive about it.
Yeah.
Because I'm very confident, and I'm sure we're both saying the same thing, that also 3-4 years down the line, and when we're in the middle of this process and it's been going for a few years, because it'll take years, the properties that have already gone through the process, their value is higher than somebody who's been kind of trying to like put their head in the sand.
Oh yeah.
And so this isn't something where you want to wait.
No. And you definitely want to file, because
yes, that's what I'm saying. As soon as possible.
If you don't file, you might be just held down to domestic only.
Right.
No irrigation or anything. So, it's like, we don't like it, but it's just something you got to do. And I know a lot of people just are, like you said, putting their head in the sand and hoping, wishing it would go away, and it's just not going to go away. Not to our knowledge right now.
And a lot of these properties don't have like even they don't have anything on file even. So it's like they...
Yeah. We've got exempt wells that people dug a long time ago, and they use domestic and irrigation and livestock and stuff. Those are included. Those are okay. They're not saying, oh, those don't count or anything. No, as long as you can show the historic use on them, maybe some old pictures of, cows drinking from something, or the house being built and showing that, it was from this well and stuff. It's actually pretty common. They think this is going to be affecting about 15,000 residents and county properties and stuff. So,
I think they said up to is close to 20%, but maybe up to 20% of the populace, but that would make sense. 15,000. Yeah, at least 15,000 households. And about 20% of the population in Whatcom and surrounding areas. So be on top of it.
Yeah.
Did you have something else you wanted to finish with?
There's one thing that's kind of interesting. So say if you're on a shared well, and this came up in one of the talks with one of the water rights attorneys, and they said, we're on a shared well, and we have, each has the 500 gallons per day use for domestic. What about the irrigation rights and stuff? And it goes back to the use it or lose it. So if one person has a garden and irrigates and has flower beds and all that stuff, and nobody else does, and they've been doing that, they could be the one person who has the right out of, say, 4 of a community or shared well situation. Yeah. So if they keep record, if the other people haven't used, the other people don't claim any irrigation, but one person does, that parcel could be the parcel that gets that irrigation right in the future. So this is one of those things that's the use it or lose it. And so like I said, for a shared well, it could all shuffle to one property.
So that's a really good thing to close out on, is if you're on a shared well, you should be getting together with the other owners of the shared well and discussing a game plan together.
Yeah.
So you're all on the same page.
Yeah.
Because that is absolutely a great point, that on a shared well, you could get people going rogue and applying on their own and potentially getting more water rights than the other person. And so be proactive. Be proactive. If you're buying a property on a well, if you're buying a property on agricultural land, if you're buying any vacant land in Whatcom County, see Crissy or see somebody who knows what they're talking about. Do your research. And
I think one important thing, nowhere in any of the documentation does it help you out with this when you're buying or selling. It does say on the well addendum that basically water rights are not, we are not guaranteeing any water right transfers on there. It's a new addition to the well addendum, and that's it. So I think we should put as an addendum, say on an optional clause or the well addendum, put something like buyers want to see within X amount of days the adjudication paperwork from the seller, so that they know what the usage is, so that they know what they're buying as far as, I can't have my hobby farm. They never had livestock. They never did this. They never claimed irrigation. They've never done anything. It's just domestic only, and we wanted it for other things, even though it's on acreage or something. So you want to see what they're claiming. I also think before that time, and even during that time, testimonials from the prior owners of what they've used for, so that they could use that. Say if you buy something right now and the adjudication process hasn't started, you're going to want something saying what the historic use of that property has been, so you can file that with your adjudication paperwork. I think that's very important.
So a lot of due diligence. So that is all really helpful. And we will, again, have links on YouTube and on the podcast with different sites to go to look up what's there for each property. But ultimately, it's going to take more than just looking up what's online. It's going to take a lot of proactive work. And so see Crissy. A lot of due diligence to be done. And again, see Crissy if you need more. Thank you for watching or listening, you guys. Cheers.